You think you know her. Every word she speaks seems sincere, every gesture genuine. But appearances are deceptive. Behind her smile, a labyrinth of secrets waits to be uncovered. Today, we dive into the shadows of her mind. Her words are carefully chosen, each sentence a puzzle you think you can solve. You try to trust, but something feels off, subtle and unplaceable. Your mind unconsciously fills the gaps in her stories. What she hides is not random, it's calculated. Welcome to the psychology behind her lies. Lies are everywhere, but some women use them differently. Not to harm, but to survive, to control, or to gain advantage. Consider Anna, trusted by all, admired, seemingly honest. Small contradictions began to appear, subtle inconsistencies no one noticed. By the time anyone realized, trust had been eroded. She hides in plain sight, blending reality with illusion. You can see her, but not the truth behind her actions. Each secret is a layer, a tool, a shield. You begin to doubt your own memory, your perceptions warped by subtle cues. The deeper you look, the less certain you become. Every interaction becomes a game, every smile a strategy. You notice patterns too late, realize the emotional pull she exerts. Guilt, charm, subtle persuasion, they all draw you in. Her lies shape reality, bending it just enough to keep you off balance. You start questioning what is real and what is illusion. The mind is a storyteller, eager to construct meaning. She exploits this, letting your assumptions do the work. A small misdirection here, a compliment there, and suddenly your reality aligns with her narrative. You become a participant in a story she controls. Awareness is the only way to reclaim your perspective. She operates subtly, like a chess player plotting moves in advance. Each word, each action is calculated to elicit a reaction. You rarely see the strategy, only the outcomes. Slowly, relationships shift, loyalties tested. Emotional manipulation becomes invisible, yet its effects ripple through every interaction. Trust is fragile, and she knows exactly how to fracture it. A compliment here, a half-truth there, and you begin to second-guess yourself. The smallest doubt grows, seated carefully in your mind. Charm masks deception, smiles conceal intent. By the time suspicion arises, she has already moved several steps ahead. Contradictions appear, subtle and disjointed. You notice them, but they feel accidental. Each inconsistency is part of a larger plan, a carefully crafted web. You try to reconcile them, your mind bending reality to make sense. And in this struggle, she maintains control effortlessly. By now, the web is fully visible, but only to the careful observer. Trust is shattered, relationships strained, yet the architecture of her lies remains intact. Every step, every word, meticulously placed. Reality feels uncertain, perception unreliable. This is the power of hidden truths and the psychology behind her secrets. The human mind craves patterns, coherence, truth. She exploits this hunger, letting your brain fill the gaps. Every omission, every hint, guides your assumptions. Slowly, your reality bends to her narrative. The more you trust, the more malleable your perception becomes. Your mind becomes her collaborator. You unconsciously construct her story, rationalize inconsistencies, forgive contradictions. She doesn't need to lie loudly, subtlety is her weapon. Each reaction she observes refines her strategy. Reality itself bends around her subtle influence. Like a chess player, she anticipates every move. You react, she observes, then adjusts. Compliments, silences, slight gestures, they are all calculated. You feel in control, but you are part of the game. Every interaction is designed to tilt reality in her favor. She understands your desires, fears, and weaknesses. Each manipulation aligns with your blind spots. You think you are making decisions freely, but the path is subtly orchestrated. Awareness is rare, most fall silently into her patterns. Her power is invisible, yet absolute. Her lies are layered, overlapping like shadows. You see fragments, but the full picture remains hidden. Each word, action, and gesture is a building block in a hidden architecture. You question reality, doubting your own memory. And yet, she moves through life with calculated ease. A smile can deceive more than a lie. Charm masks intent, misdirection conceals motive. Small gestures manipulate perception in ways you cannot always detect. You feel warmth, trust, connection, but it may be an illusion. The mind accepts what it wants, and she knows exactly what that is. She tests boundaries invisibly. Your loyalty, reactions, and patience are measured without your knowledge. Small provocations, gentle encouragements, subtle observations, they all feed her understanding of you. By the time you notice, the patterns are established. She has already mapped your mind. Emotions become instruments, carefully played. Anger, guilt, or affection, each note precisely struck. You respond instinctively, unaware of the orchestration. The ripples of her manipulation extend further than you imagine. Others unknowingly become part of her web, amplifying her influence. And then, she disappears into the shadows of her own making. Her presence lingers, her influence felt, but the source is invisible. Every secret, every manipulation, carefully layered to remain unseen. You search for clarity, but the fog of her mind distorts perception. Control remains hers, silent and absolute. By now, suspicion rises. You see cracks, inconsistencies, and traces of deceit. But the architecture of her lies remains intact, complex, and elegant. Reality feels uncertain, perception unreliable. This is the haunting power of hidden truths and the psychology behind her secrets. She thrives in ambiguity. When reality feels unstable, you seek clarity, but she offers only fragments. Each word is a brushstroke on a canvas of uncertainty. You start questioning not just her, but your own perception. And yet, she moves effortlessly through the shadows of your doubt. Your attention is drawn to what she wants you to see. Subtle gestures, fleeting expressions, and whispered words direct your focus. Meanwhile, the true intent remains hidden in plain sight. You chase illusions while the reality quietly shifts. This is the art of manipulation at its most invisible. Memory itself can betray you. You remember events slightly altered, conversations twisted by selective emphasis. She understands the malleability of memory and exploits it. You doubt yourself, questioning whether you are overreacting. And in this space of uncertainty, her influence grows stronger. Guilt is a tool she wields effortlessly. A misplaced comment, a half-frown, a subtle accusation, enough to make you apologize before realizing why. You carry her invisible weight, silently reinforcing her control. Every act of contrition strengthens her unseen grip. The mind obeys her cues without awareness. Charm can disguise intent, making deception palatable. You want to believe in warmth and kindness, but each smile may carry purpose. You are drawn to her, unaware of the psychological threads tugging at your mind. Beneath the allure lies a calculated pattern. The more you admire, the more entangled you become. Observation becomes her greatest ally. Every reaction, hesitation, or glance you make is recorded, analyzed, and used. She adjusts strategy in real time, keeping you off balance. Even awareness is insufficient if subtlety is mastered. In her mind, people are pieces on an invisible chessboard. She thrives in social camouflage. In a crowd, she is both visible and invisible, acting normal while orchestrating influence. Your attention is captured by her surface charm, never the patterns beneath. Others unwittingly reinforce her control. The environment itself becomes her instrument. Small provocations ripple outward unnoticed. A casual remark, a fleeting glance, a subtle gesture, all create a chain reaction. By the time consequences appear, you cannot trace the source. Her control is invisible but omnipresent. The web she spins entangles everyone in sight. Even silence has power. The absence of words can manipulate thought, create tension, or elicit guilt. She knows the precise moment to speak, to pause, to shift perception. You fill the void with assumptions she has already orchestrated. Silence becomes another weapon in her subtle arsenal. Eventually, patterns emerge if you look closely. A lie here, a half-truth there, a repeated manipulation. The architecture of her mind reveals itself, complex and deliberate. But most never see it, they only feel its effects. This is the haunting beauty and danger of hidden truths. She thrives in the gray areas where rules blur. Moral ambiguity is her playground, and perception is the only measure of truth. You search for answers, but every explanation seems incomplete. Reality bends subtly under her influence, yet you barely notice. She operates in the spaces where clarity fails. Each encounter is an experiment. She observes reactions, notes vulnerabilities, and refines her strategy. You believe you are in control, making choices freely, yet the design was never yours. Even small decisions feed her understanding. Your mind becomes a canvas for her subtle manipulations. She knows the power of suggestion, planting ideas that seem your own. You feel clever, independent, convinced of your judgment. Meanwhile, your choices are quietly guided. Influence disguised as autonomy is the most effective. You do not realize you are walking her path. Trust becomes her playground, and doubt her weapon. One moment, you feel secure, the next, uncertain. She manipulates emotions with a precision you cannot detect. The mind obeys subtle cues faster than conscious thought. Each interaction reinforces her control while you remain unaware. Her lies are never blunt, they are layered, nuanced, and strategic. You spot inconsistencies only in hindsight, when the consequences are already in motion. By then, the architecture of influence is complete. You feel uneasy, manipulated, yet cannot pinpoint how. The mind bends to subtle design, not force. She exploits the human desire for coherence. Your mind fills in gaps, reconciles contradictions, and smooths over anomalies. In doing so, you become complicit in her manipulation. Reality becomes a cooperative illusion, created by both observer and architect. You trust what you want to trust. Every smile, every frown, every glance is carefully placed. Emotional cues are measured to elicit exactly the response she desires. You respond instinctively, unaware of her subtle orchestration. Influence is exercised not through force, but through guidance of perception. Her mind is a masterful instrument of control. She thrives on silence as much as speech. The absence of words creates space for your imagination to fill, often incorrectly. You interpret, react, and unknowingly follow her cues. Inaction becomes just as powerful as deception. Every pause is intentional, every silence a tool. Subtle repetition reinforces her influence. A phrase repeated, a gesture reiterated, a pattern emerging without obvious cause. You think it is random, but it is carefully orchestrated. Your mind internalizes these patterns as natural, unavoidable. And each repetition tightens her control over perception. Eventually, the architecture of her lies and influence becomes apparent to those who look closely. Patterns emerge, revealing deliberate design. But most never see the structure, they only feel the consequences. Reality seems unstable, perception unreliable, and yet, she moves effortlessly through it all. This is the haunting subtlety of hidden truths. She understands that perception is malleable. One subtle suggestion can change how you interpret reality. You think you are seeing clearly, but your mind is already guided. Each impression is a brushstroke in her carefully painted canvas. You are part of her story without realizing it. Even contradictions work in her favor. When you notice inconsistencies, she redirects attention. When doubt arises, she offers half-truths to anchor your belief. You feel you are questioning, but she controls the very framework of your inquiry. Influence becomes invisible yet absolute. She plays the long game. Small, seemingly insignificant gestures accumulate over time. Each micro-interaction reinforces her control, often without notice. By the time consequences appear, the architecture is complete. You are entangled in a web spun silently and expertly. Subtle emotional manipulation is her specialty. She observes, predicts, and adjusts to your reactions. Fear, guilt, affection, each emotion becomes a lever she pulls. You react instinctively, thinking it is your own decision. In truth, every response has been guided. She uses your expectations against you. What you anticipate becomes her tool for misdirection. You follow a path you think you chose freely, but she shaped every turn. Awareness is difficult because she works through the subconscious. The mind bends subtly to her influence. Even small silences are calculated. Pauses between words create tension, uncertainty, and introspection. Your mind fills the void, often with assumptions she guided. The absence of information becomes a tool of influence. Control is exercised as much through what is left unsaid as through what is revealed. Memory manipulation is subtle but powerful. She plants ideas, adjusts emphasis, and exploits forgetfulness. You recall events slightly altered, convinced it was always this way. The line between truth and perception blurs. You trust what you remember, unaware it is shaped by her hand. Patterns, repetition, and reinforcement are her allies. Small gestures repeated over time become norms in your mind. You internalize them naturally, thinking they were your own ideas. Influence disguised as habit is invisible but effective. The web grows silently around you. She exploits the desire for approval and connection. You seek affirmation, unaware she is directing it. Each compliment, each validation, is carefully orchestrated to deepen dependency. Emotional bonds are shaped by subtle influence rather than force. You feel compelled without knowing why. By now, the architecture of influence is fully established. Every interaction, every emotion, every observation has contributed to a silent network of control. You may feel something is off, yet the structure remains invisible. Reality feels unstable, and perception unreliable. This is the quiet power of hidden truths. Subtlety is her greatest weapon. You rarely see manipulation in action, only its effects. Every smile, glance, and pause contributes to an invisible pattern. You believe your mind is independent, yet it is quietly guided. Awareness alone cannot undo the careful orchestration. She plays on cognitive biases, exploiting the gaps between perception and reality. Your mind fills in missing information, often incorrectly. She anticipates your assumptions, gently nudging them in her favor. The more you think you are observing, the more you are influenced. Reality bends without force. Even contradictions serve her purpose. When you detect inconsistencies, she redirects attention. When doubt arises, she provides partial truths to anchor your belief. You believe you are critically analyzing, but the framework was always hers. Influence works best when invisible. Every social interaction becomes a tool. She observes reactions, predicts responses, and adjusts behavior accordingly. You think you are influencing her, but the truth is reversed. She orchestrates without effort, guiding perception subtly. The mind bends quietly under her touch. Silence is as powerful as speech. A well-timed pause makes you overthink, interpret, and assume. Each moment of quiet is carefully calculated to elicit a reaction. You are acting in a space she designed. Influence thrives in absence as much as in presence. Small gestures repeated over time shape perception. Repetition creates familiarity, which the mind interprets as truth. You internalize behaviors and ideas, unaware they are subtly guided. Influence becomes invisible when disguised as habit. Slowly, the pattern becomes ingrained. She understands your emotional triggers. A smile, a frown, a carefully chosen word, all produce predictable reactions. You feel in control, yet your emotions are orchestrated. Each reaction reinforces her understanding, making subsequent influence even more precise. Emotional manipulation is her invisible art. Memory is another instrument she uses. Events are subtly reframed, words selectively emphasized, gaps intentionally left. You remember imperfectly, thinking your recollection is accurate. She shapes perception through recollection. Reality is what you are led to remember. Patterns emerge if you observe closely. Gestures, phrases, and reactions repeat, forming a hidden design. You may see fragments, but the architecture remains elusive. Slowly, the web becomes visible to the careful observer. By then, influence has already taken root. The culmination of her methods is subtle, yet absolute. Every word, pause, and gesture has shaped perception without overt force. You feel compelled, guided, and influenced, unaware of the extent. This is the quiet mastery of hidden truths. She moves through reality unseen, yet controlling. She exploits the natural human desire for consistency. When you attempt to reconcile contradictions, she guides the resolution subtly. You believe the conclusion is your own, yet it aligns perfectly with her plan. Each thought, each choice, bends gently toward her design. Influence becomes seamless and invisible. Even doubt can serve her purposes. A whispered suspicion, a fleeting concern, reinforces her subtle control. You may question yourself, but the doubt was carefully planted. By guiding uncertainty, she molds perception without overt force. Your mind becomes pliable under the weight of subtle cues. Observation is her silent weapon. Every micro-expression, hesitation, or glance is noted and stored. You act, react, and reveal patterns she quietly records. Each interaction is a lesson, each response a tool for influence. By the time you notice, her understanding is complete. Subtle repetition reinforces her influence over time. Gestures, phrases, and behaviors repeated in controlled increments form unconscious patterns. You internalize them, thinking they are natural. Influence disguised as habit becomes invisible yet effective. Slowly, her design takes root in your perception. She thrives in emotional nuance. Small gestures evoke anger, guilt, or affection with precision. You respond instinctively, believing it is natural. Each reaction deepens her understanding, allowing future influence to be more exact. Emotional manipulation is subtle, invisible, and relentless. Memory becomes her instrument. Selective emphasis, slight reframing, and deliberate omissions distort recollection. You trust your memory, unaware it has been shaped. Perception becomes a reflection of her design. Reality and recollection intertwine under her subtle orchestration. Patterns emerge if you observe carefully. Gestures, phrases, and reactions repeat, forming a hidden blueprint. You see fragments but rarely the complete structure. Slowly, the web becomes visible, revealing her meticulous design. Influence has already been internalized before detection. Every silence, every pause, becomes a calculated tool. The absence of information allows your imagination to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions she designed. Control is exercised invisibly, guiding without overt force. Each pause is another thread in her subtle web. The culmination of repetition, observation, and subtle influence creates invisible mastery. By now, every action, reaction, and thought is subtly guided. You may feel free, but perception has been orchestrated. Influence is silent yet absolute, shaping decisions and belief. Reality itself bends under her hand. By observing carefully, you can detect the architecture of influence. Each repetition, pause, and subtle cue forms a pattern. The design becomes visible to the careful eye, yet most only feel its effects. Awareness is possible, but mastery remains elusive. This is the haunting subtlety of hidden truths. She thrives in subtlety, where most influence goes unnoticed. Micro-expressions, pauses, and gestures guide perception silently. You act thinking it is your choice, yet every move is guided. Awareness reveals fragments, but the design is complex. Influence becomes invisible, yet its effects are profound. Your assumptions are her tools. Each expectation you hold is gently nudged toward her plan. You believe you are analyzing independently, yet she shapes the framework. Small suggestions seem natural, but they steer thought. Perception bends under subtle guidance. Contradictions are never accidental. They are carefully placed to direct attention and guide inference. You notice, doubt, and rationalize, but the structure was intentional. Each inconsistency reinforces her control. Subtle design shapes perception imperceptibly. Observation is her silent instrument. Every glance, hesitation, or gesture is recorded and analyzed. You think you are influencing her, but it is reversed. Subtle adjustments refine her strategy. Every reaction teaches her how to guide perception further. Repetition reinforces influence invisibly. Gestures, phrases, and subtle cues repeated over time are internalized unconsciously. You accept patterns as normal, unaware of the underlying design. Slowly, her control embeds itself in your perception. Habit becomes a vehicle for subtle mastery. Emotions are carefully orchestrated. Joy, guilt, or fear are subtly elicited to produce predictable responses. You feel natural, spontaneous reactions, yet each is guided. Emotional mastery is invisible but precise. Each reaction deepens her understanding, reinforcing influence. Memory becomes a tool of influence. Reframing events, emphasizing certain details, and omitting others shapes recollection. You trust memory, but it is subtly guided. Perception of past and present merges under her orchestration. Reality is what she allows you to remember. Patterns emerge for those who look closely. Gestures, phrases, and microreactions create a hidden structure. You see fragments but rarely the complete design. Slowly, the architecture becomes visible to careful observation. By then, influence is internalized, subtle yet profound. Silence wields its own power. Pauses allow your mind to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions carefully guided. Inaction and observation become tools for influence. Each quiet moment subtly tightens the web. The culmination of subtle gestures, observation, and repetition creates mastery. By now, every reaction, thought, and emotion is subtly guided. You feel free, yet perception is orchestrated. Influence is silent, pervasive, and absolute. Reality bends under unseen hands. She operates in the unseen spaces between actions. Micro-expressions, subtle gestures, and calculated silences guide perception. You believe your mind is independent, yet every thought is nudged. Awareness only reveals fragments, not the full pattern. Influence is seamless, invisible, and pervasive. Your assumptions are her instruments. Each expectation you hold is gently steered toward her plan. You think you are analyzing freely, yet the framework is hers. Subtle suggestions seem natural, but they guide thought. Perception bends imperceptibly under her influence. Contradictions are carefully crafted. Inconsistencies redirect attention and guide reasoning. You notice, rationalize, and doubt, but the structure is intentional. Each contradiction strengthens her invisible control. Subtle design shapes perception without detection. Observation is her silent instrument. Every glance, hesitation, and reaction is noted and analyzed. You act thinking you influence her, but she records patterns for future guidance. Each interaction is a lesson. Every response enhances her control. Repetition reinforces influence invisibly. Gestures, phrases, and subtle cues repeated over time become internalized habits. You accept them naturally, unaware of the underlying design. Slowly, her control embeds itself. Influence hidden as habit is powerful and silent. Emotions are manipulated with precision. Joy, guilt, and fear are subtly evoked to produce predictable responses. You feel your reactions are natural, yet they are orchestrated. Each response deepens her understanding, making future influence more exact. Emotional manipulation remains invisible yet potent. Memory is an instrument of influence. Events are reframed, details emphasized or omitted, shaping recollection. You trust memory, yet it is guided. Past and present merge under her subtle orchestration. Reality becomes what she allows you to remember. Patterns emerge for observant eyes. Gestures, phrases, and reactions form a hidden blueprint. You may see fragments but rarely the full architecture. Slowly, the design becomes visible. By then, influence is deeply internalized. Silence wields subtle power. Pauses allow your mind to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions she designed. Inaction becomes a tool of influence. Each quiet moment strengthens her web invisibly. The culmination of subtle gestures, observation, and repetition creates invisible mastery. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is subtly guided. You feel free, yet perception is orchestrated. Influence is pervasive, silent, and absolute. Reality bends under her unseen hand. She thrives in the spaces between words and actions. Every glance, gesture, and pause guides perception without overt force. You act thinking it's your own choice, yet every thought is subtly nudged. Awareness only reveals fragments, never the full pattern. Influence remains invisible but profound. Assumptions are her instruments. Each expectation you hold is gently steered toward her plan. You believe your analysis is independent, but the framework is hers. Small suggestions seem natural but direct thought. Perception bends imperceptibly under her influence. Contradictions are intentional tools. Each inconsistency redirects attention and guides reasoning. You notice, rationalize, and doubt, but the structure is deliberate. Subtle design strengthens invisible control. Perception bends without detection. Observation is her silent instrument. Every glance, hesitation, or reaction is recorded. You act thinking you influence her, but she studies patterns for future guidance. Each interaction teaches her how to steer perception. Influence grows quietly with every response. Repetition embeds influence invisibly. Gestures, phrases, and subtle cues repeated over time become internalized habits. You accept them naturally, unaware of the design. Slowly, her control embeds itself. Habit becomes the vessel for subtle mastery. Emotions are orchestrated with precision. Joy, guilt, and fear are subtly evoked to produce predictable responses. You feel reactions are natural, yet each is guided. Each response deepens her understanding, making future influence even more exact. Emotional manipulation is invisible but potent. Memory is an instrument of influence. Events are reframed, words emphasized or omitted, shaping recollection. You trust memory, unaware it has been guided. Past and present merge under her orchestration. Reality becomes what she allows you to remember. Patterns emerge for observant eyes. Gestures, phrases, and reactions create a hidden blueprint. You may see fragments, but rarely the full structure. Slowly, the design becomes visible. Influence has already been internalized before detection. Silence wields subtle power. Pauses allow your mind to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions she designed. Inaction becomes a tool of influence. Each quiet moment tightens the web invisibly. The culmination of subtle gestures, observation, and repetition is mastery. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is guided without your awareness. You feel free, yet perception is orchestrated. Influence is silent, pervasive, and absolute. Reality bends under her unseen hand. She moves in the invisible spaces of influence. Every gesture, glance, and pause subtly guides your perception. You act thinking it is your choice, yet every thought is quietly directed. Awareness only reveals fragments, never the full design. Influence is seamless, invisible, and profound. Assumptions are her instruments. Each expectation you hold is nudged toward her plan. You think your analysis is independent, but the framework is hers. Suggestions appear natural, yet they subtly guide thought. Perception bends imperceptibly under her influence. Contradictions are never accidental. Each inconsistency directs attention and shapes reasoning. You notice, rationalize, and doubt, but it is part of her design. Subtle structure strengthens invisible control. Perception bends without detection. Observation is her silent weapon. Every glance, hesitation, or reaction is recorded. You act thinking you influence her, yet she studies patterns for subtle guidance. Each interaction is a lesson. Every response enhances her control. Repetition reinforces influence invisibly. Gestures, phrases, and subtle cues repeated over time become internalized habits. You accept them naturally, unaware of the design. Slowly, her control embeds itself. Habit becomes the vessel for silent mastery. Emotions are orchestrated with precision. Joy, guilt, and fear are subtly evoked to produce predictable responses. You feel reactions are natural, yet each is guided. Each response deepens her understanding, refining future influence. Emotional manipulation is invisible yet potent. Memory becomes a tool of influence. Events are reframed, words emphasized or omitted, shaping recollection. You trust memory, unaware it is guided. Past and present merge under her orchestration. Reality becomes what she allows you to remember. Patterns emerge for those who observe carefully. Gestures, phrases, and reactions form a hidden blueprint. You see fragments, but rarely the full structure. Slowly, the design becomes visible. Influence has already been internalized before detection. Silence wields its own power. Pauses allow your mind to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions she designed. Inaction becomes a tool of influence. Each quiet moment strengthens the web invisibly. The culmination of subtle gestures, observation, and repetition is mastery. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is guided without your awareness. You feel free, yet perception is orchestrated. Influence is silent, pervasive, and absolute. Reality bends under her unseen hand. She moves unseen, her influence imperceptible yet absolute. Every glance, gesture, and pause guides perception silently. You act thinking it's your own choice, yet every thought bends subtly toward her design. Awareness only reveals fragments. Influence remains invisible, yet profound. Assumptions are her instruments. Each expectation you hold is guided toward her plan. You think your analysis is independent, yet the framework is hers. Subtle suggestions feel natural but steer thought. Perception bends quietly under her touch. Contradictions are carefully orchestrated. Each inconsistency directs attention and shapes reasoning. You notice, rationalize, and doubt, but it is intentional. The structure strengthens invisible control. Subtle design manipulates perception seamlessly. Observation is her silent weapon. Every glance, hesitation, or reaction is recorded. You think you influence her, but she studies patterns for subtle guidance. Each interaction is a lesson. Every response enhances her control. Repetition embeds influence invisibly. Gestures, phrases, and subtle cues repeated over time are internalized as habit. You accept them naturally, unaware of the design. Slowly, her control embeds itself. Habit becomes a vehicle for mastery. Emotions are precisely orchestrated. Joy, guilt, and fear are subtly evoked to produce predictable responses. You feel your reactions are natural, yet each is guided. Each response deepens her understanding, refining influence further. Emotional mastery remains invisible. Memory is her tool. Events are reframed, details emphasized or omitted, shaping recollection. You trust memory, unaware it has been influenced. Past and present merge under her orchestration. Reality becomes what she allows you to remember. Patterns become visible to those who observe carefully. Gestures, phrases, and reactions form a hidden blueprint. You may see fragments but rarely the full design. Slowly, the architecture becomes visible. Influence has already been internalized. Silence holds power. Pauses allow your mind to fill gaps, often incorrectly. You act based on assumptions she designed. Inaction becomes a tool of influence. Each quiet moment strengthens the web invisibly. The culmination of subtle gestures, observation, and repetition is absolute mastery. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is guided without your awareness. You feel free, yet perception is orchestrated. Influence is silent, pervasive, and absolute. Reality bends under her unseen hand.